something about small towns.
You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Alberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of TellyCast Live from the Palais. We're broadcasting live from Cannes, meeting the movers and shakers of the international TV industry at MIPCOM, the world's biggest content market, this year celebrating its 40th anniversary. Today we'll be joined by guests including Evan Shapiro, Sharon Levi from ITV Studios and Julie Meldal Johnsen from ITV Studios for live interviews and panel sessions as we discuss the key talking points and the hottest shows hitting the market. Thank you to MIPCOM and our sponsors ITV Studios and Shooting in Spain, a brand of ISEX Invest in Spain, for making the show possible. If you're here in Cannes or watching wherever you are in the world, welcome to TellyCast Live from the Palais. We'd love you to get involved too. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow and get in touch in the comments. First up on today's show, Sharon Levi from ITV Studios. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Justin.
Welcome to TellyCast Live from the Palais. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And we were meant to see each other a year ago, but obviously, traveling from Israel has been a little bit more difficult, hasn't it, in recent months?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
We had our plans, we had everything set up, meetings were in place, and then obviously October 7th happened. The whole world kind of went upside down. And of course, we had to cancel our trips, and we needed to kind of reset ourselves for a bit. But now we're back.
Yeah.
We're back. The war's still going on. But we're trying to take a breath and be back in the market with new exciting projects. And, work is a blessing right now. And just to be a little bit distracted from the news at home.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And you got here, there's I think one flight a day or a week or something like that, isn't there?
The only airline that's flying right now is the Israeli Airlines El Al, so, we have to accommodate according to that, but at least we were able to find the right flights and get here. And we're here for the Monday and the Tuesday, back-to-back meetings. The whole Israeli industry was on that flight, so,
Right.
Good that we got here safely.
Yeah, well, great to see you.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
So you've been behind some really successful global series recently, Fauda, Stissel and Your Honor being 3 of those. They've really resonated locally and globally as well. What do you think the key is to that? What's helped you develop those such successful series that have gone on all around the world?
Well, I think, they're all very different, obviously, and they each tell a very different story. But I think at the end of the day, people can identify with a lot of the characters that we're showing on these series. People are interested and intrigued by stories that we're telling. Fauda is a very specific show about a very specific conflict between, the Israelis and the Palestinians, but it's told through the eyes of very colorful and interesting characters. And I think at the end of the day, you're on the edge of your seat and you're watching it just like any other crime, thriller, adventure, suspense drama that you're watching, and you're rooting for them, and you have your favorite characters. And I think people are really engaged in the storytelling. And Stissel, on the other hand, is giving you an inside look about, the Orthodox religious community living in Jerusalem. How many chances do you have to kind of have a very unique look into, these types of traditions and these types of characters that you would never learn about otherwise? But it's also told from a very kind of humoristic standpoint, and they have their own kind of genre of the way that they're speaking to each other, and it's kind of like watching a telenovela. Like, you want to know what's going to happen with your favorite character in the next episode. And then Your Honor is a universe, just to name a few examples, as you said, Your Honor has a very universal premise. And I think when you have an idea that you can explain simply to anyone really, and that can resonate internationally, then people get it instantly. Like, for Your Honor, it's quite simple. It's how far are you willing to go in order to save your own son? And that's a moral question that parents all over the world probably need to answer that. And you're going to get different types of answers from different types of cultures and people. And I think with that, being an honorable judge and to cross the lines of legal and what's not legal and a lot of gray areas in between. I think that's something that a lot of people can, relate to, and it goes on. And we try to tell compelling stories with everything that, we bring to the international marketplace. If it's big or small, doesn't matter. The language doesn't matter. I think if it's a compelling story, and now more and more people are getting accustomed to, if it's reading subtitles or in some countries dubbing, they can still connect to the storytelling and to the characters very much so.
Yeah. So tell us about Yes Studios then. I mean, I know that you're not just focused on high-end drama. You work in documentary and lots of other genres as well. Just tell us a little bit about the business.
Yes Studios, primarily we're the distribution arm that represents a lot of Israeli content coming out of our parent company, Yes, which is the largest streaming service in Israel right now, started as a satellite company. And yes, we're doing premium drama and comedy. We're also representing documentary series, documentary features right now. And I think this is just a little passion of mine that, you kind of watch a documentary, you really fall in love with it. You think it should start traveling because you think people would really connect to it. And, you go up to the producers and say, hey, it's not my specialty, but I love the project. I would be honored to represent it. So we're doing a lot of those as well. We're also getting more and more involved in co-productions right now, finding partners for projects that we have in development, bringing them on board. So we're collaborating with producers and other distributors and private financing companies and private investors in general that are interested in coming on board very early. And then we try to also make sure that there's a little bit of other foreign languages involved apart from Hebrew, or some of them may be shot in other locations. So, we're primarily distributing and raising money for projects. We're selling a lot of formats for adaptations. We're selling a lot of tape. And I think, we're walking around MIP and talking to so many people in such a small period of time. You hear pretty much the same thing from everyone, is that people are trying to find creative ways to save money on production.
Yeah.
And without that affecting, the quality of your product. And that's really important. And I think obviously if you acquire a tape, that's easy, you have a slot filled. If you adapt the format, that's also easy because it's a proven track record show. You have access to all the scripts and all the materials. And it takes a shorter period of time to adapt a format than it would to create something from scratch. And it saves time, it saves money. And we're seeing it all the time. People are coming to us, and we're talking to people about formats and different types of genres. Like you were saying, it could be a romantic comedy, it could be a family entertainment format, it could be a crime thriller, it could be suspense. Whatever the genre is, we probably have it, and we'll be able to cater. And I think it requires us to be very flexible in our business making, which we are. Being a small boutique company, we have the ability to be very flexible and kind of cater to our clients' needs anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We had Guy Bisson on from Ampere Analysis on the show yesterday, and he was, talking about there's been a real drop in commissioning, and we were also actually speaking to Andy Fry from MIPCOM News, and he was saying about the trend for de-risking really when it comes to broadcasters. And I guess if you're a distribution company with formats, then that always puts you in quite a favourable position, actually, isn't it? When you've got a proven format, proven track record, it's going to be much more attractive to a broadcaster than taking a big risk.
That is true. And let me tell you a secret. I think broadcasters around the world are always very risk averse. They've always been. I mean, rarely do I find a broadcaster that is willing to take chances and just go blindly on something that doesn't have any track record.
They don't want to lose the job,
doesn't
right?
Have a big writer
business.
attached or doesn't have a big name attached. Yeah. I mean, they're very risk averse, and that's something that we've known, I guess, forever and ever. And you kind of work your way into that. And and I think, and you're right. I think when they talk about something that is an established IP, something that already aired somewhere, something that has maybe ratings and some data about it.
And maybe some prior knowledge with the audience. Maybe the audience
reviews.
Remembered it from 6-7 years ago. It's going to be less of a risk to bring something back that's established.
Yeah, and you see a lot of reboots.
Yeah.
And a lot of favorite shows that are coming back, and remakes of favorite shows that are coming back.
Yeah,
again.
We're seeing that a lot in the UK actually at the moment. Yeah.
So there you go. I just think people like to be comforted. And, I think sometimes people live in places where, regardless of what the status is right now in Israel, I think a lot of people have difficult realities that they're living in right now. And for them, it needs to be something comforting, something that's a no-brainer for them, something that they don't need to think about too much. And, Friends, Seinfeld are always going to be aired somewhere in the world at every given moment, probably as we speak. And that's always these types of shows that you like to come back to again and again and again, How I Met Your Mother or Sex and the City or all these classic shows from years before are always going to be a success. And people, I think, are looking to be comforted. People are looking to escape reality a lot of times.
Yeah.
And watching shows that you're familiar with or sound familiar or remember from your childhood is always a good way to go about that. And I think when you take a format, even a format that's like 10 or 20 years old, and you remember it fondly from before, and then you give it a new life, give it another spin or another take on it, and you kind of remake it into your own culture. It looks familiar, but it has a new packaging. And there you go. And you have a new show for less of the costs and less of the time invested. And I think it's a win-win situation, really, for everyone. Yeah.
So you're presumably busy back to back, or during
much.
the time that you're here. I mean, tell us about what new content that you're bringing to the market right now.
Sure. Actually, a documentary series that we just launched in Israel on Yes, called The Lost City, 101 Days in Captivity. This is a joint venture that we've done with ITV Studios, which is a part of Paramount. And it tells the true story of 8 travelers that went on a trek 20 years ago in Colombia to the Lost City, and they were kidnapped by one of the terrorist organizations that ruled Colombia at the time, part of the cartel called the ELN. And they were kidnapped, and they tell the whole story. And now, 20 years later, the Israelis want to confront the person who was in charge of that kidnapping. He was released from prison recently, and they have a meeting with him. They meet with him face to face, basically to try and tie the knot, because you can obviously see that they're post-traumatic from this experience. They were treated in a certain way. Part of the travelers included a German woman. She was the only woman there. She went through traumatic time during that kidnapping. And there was another Spanish person there and 2 British people. One of them managed to escape and run away. He refused to take part in the production. I guess the trauma was just too difficult for him. But it's a compelling story about trying to come full circle and to stand in front of the kidnapper or the person that was responsible for this kidnapping and just ask, why us?
Yeah.
And this whole drama takes place in Colombia. It speaks Spanish, it speaks English, it speaks Hebrew, of course. And we're very excited to bring it out. I think the timing is interesting, given the fact that we still have 101 hostages in Gaza that we're trying to free in any way possible. And telling a story of a kidnapping that occurred 20 years ago that does have some sort of a happy ending, because obviously they were released, it can give hope to people, I feel. Yeah, that's a big one for us. And then, we're very happy to announce that Deadline has chosen our latest premium drama, Night Therapy, to be one to watch at here at MIPCOM. It's an amazing drama series that just recently finished airing in Israel with great success. We've already announced season 2 that's been commissioned. And it tells the story of an Arab-Israeli psychologist that recently loses his wife. She's committed suicide. She suffered from depression. And he finds himself trying to juggle his life, raising his 2 children on his own, being a single dad. So he chooses, a spur of the moment, to kind of move his office hours, his clinic hours, to the hours of the night. His sister comes in to help him with the children, and what we find is these interesting night creatures coming in for therapy at these crazy hours at midnight or 2 a.m. And these colorful creatures, these colorful patients bring in to life these amazing stories that they tell in the clinic. And the unique format element here is, while they're telling their story and their issues to the therapist, we kind of flash back to the actual scene that they're talking about, and our therapist is as if he's there watching from the sidelines, as if he's part of the scene. And it's a beautiful moment in their therapy session, and you see the process that he's going with his patients. And also, you have the story of him trying to deal with his 2 kids, acting up in school and everything that has to do with that. It was created by Ranan Shaked. It was produced by the wonderful 8 Productions. And we're already starting, because it's such a strong format and it can resonate so well around the world, we already discussing several remakes in Europe and in the US, which we're very, very excited about, and hopefully aiming to sell the tape as well, as is.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
And everything else of the market. So just coming back to what we were talking about earlier, and without going into any of the political detail of everything that's happened in Israel over the past year or so, how difficult has it been for you as a business, working internationally? How has it affected you, the political situation?
I think, we can talk about this for hours, but I think for the first time in my professional life, the personal and the professional just meshed together in this year. I mean, it was very hard to work as usual and not have the personal side get involved. Because, as an international distribution company, we are with our faces from Israel outside. We are in touch with everyone around the world, from people in Korea and India and New Zealand through Eastern Europe and South America and all over the place. And, obviously most of these people are amazing human beings, very intelligent, well-educated people. But now and again, you will find that some of them have different opinions than you about the situation, and it will affect the business. And they will say, maybe not in so many words, that this is not the right time for Israeli content to travel. And let's put a pin in it and discuss it when times are a little bit better. And it's very hard not to take these things personal. And I know that's not against me, Sharon, specifically, because obviously we've had a relationship for many, many years. But it's hard, and the personal and the professional kind of got mixed up. And we feel that we're responsible in many ways to continue to push forward our business. We also represent content from October 7th. One of our strongest documentaries is called #Nova, and it shows minute to minute the events of what happened to the Nova Festival goers on that day. Very hard footage to watch, but it shows this is part of history. This is taking the front row in history and seeing what happened on that day. It's not AI, it hasn't been edited, it's just the raw footage. And it's very difficult to watch. It's been shot from their camera phones while they were at the party, from the moments that they were getting dressed and ready to go out and have a fun time, to the moment that these things started to happen, and then also from the camera footage of the Hamas terrorists. So you see both sides of how this day kind of turned out to be, and the disaster that is unfolding right in front of your eyes, as if you're in the front seat of this catastrophe right then and there. And we're representing this documentary. Now, it's not about selling or being commercial about it. It's just the importance of getting this documentary out to as many people as possible. And we have a lot of great people around the world that are helping us with that, and we're holding a lot of screening events. So yeah, this is my job, but it's also a mission for us that, the entire Yes Studios team is behind it. And yes, we have very difficult days where we hear different comments about the situation, and we try to keep it very, very professional. The flip side of it is that, all these sleepless nights, we're fortunate enough to work in an industry that we really love. That's pretty much working 24/7. There's always someone to be in touch with. If it's in LA or if it's in Australia, you have different the time differences. And you kind of put yourself to work a lot in order to keep your mind off the reality that you're living right now. And at times you can put a humorous spin on it, and some dark humor doesn't hurt once in a while. But we went through a lot on a personal level.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
We have soldiers in the army. My son was in Gaza, so obviously it's very hard to continue to function normally when you have this worry. And on the other hand, I'm blessed to be able to work with something that can keep my mind off it and read scripts and travel.
Yeah.
And to take a breath of fresh air now and again.
Yeah.
And I'm a very optimistic person. and I think that it may become a little bit worse before it gets better, but it will get better.
Yeah, well, here's hoping for a peaceful resolution to everything that's happening
Amen.
in Israel.
It's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally,
Yeah.
Sharon, tell us about what's next then for Yes Studios. I mean, obviously you're pitching new projects here. We heard about those earlier on. What's next in the next year or so, do you think, for
Oh,
the
wow.
business?
I mean, a lot of the projects that we were developing and that we were producing had to, we had to put them on hold because of the situation. And now we're starting to go back to kind of like business as usual. So there are a lot of things in the pipeline that we're super excited about that we're going to launch in 2025. Some returning shows. We're working on season 2 of Bloody Murray. We're working on season 3 of The Chef. We're working, obviously, on season 5 of Fauda. And more exciting news to follow on that as well. And then we have a lot of new projects that we're doing in development with different companies as co-productions or, productions that we're financing completely on our own. We have dark comedies coming. We have a great YA series, futuristic series that's coming very soon. So we have our slate quite full for 2025. We look forward to traveling more and more. We're going to be at Content London. We're going to be at Series Mania. We're going to be at all the festivals. So we're very excited about a lot of new things that are coming up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them do have the international potential. So I feel that, if it's not our time to sell Israeli tapes right now, we'll sell formats and we'll get people to come and invest because the storytelling is very strong in Israel. People know how to tell great stories. I think maybe it's because where we're living, maybe it's the geography, maybe it's our history. But you live for today, and from that, your imagination just goes wild, and a lot of great stories come even from real life, every day.
Yeah.
So,
well, I wish you all the very best,
thank you.
and have a great market. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Justin.
Now, of course, MIPCOM is a major launch platform for new TV shows as the world's biggest distributors vie for the attention of TV buyers from the hundreds of countries attending the market. One of the leading distribution companies is ITV Studios, and I caught up with EVP of Global Content, Julie Meldal Johnsen, to hear about their brand new slate for MIP24. Hello and welcome to our exclusive sit-down with Julie Meldal Johnsen, Executive Vice President of Global Content at ITV Studios. Julie, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Justin. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Great to see you. So ITV Studios has got an amazing slate that's coming to MIPCOM. Really excited to talk about some of the highlights of that.
Yes.
There's so much in the catalogue that I know we can't possibly cover.
Few.
Oh, yes. But we are going to just go through some of the highlights. And we're going to start with Good Cop, Bad Cop, which is an 8x60 drama, which was produced for the CW, Roku and Stan. And we had Jeff Wachtel recently on the show from Future Shack Entertainment. He told us a little bit about the show, but just tell us about why Good Cop, Bad Cop's on your slate and what's so special about it.
Well, as you might know, Johnsen, and our clients certainly will, we love a good crime series at ITV Studios, and we're known for having a really great slate of crime dramas and true crime documentaries. But we just loved this one when Jeff first sent it to us. It's American. It's got volume. It's a town that you want to be in. It just does what Jeff is known for doing so well. It's blue sky. It's entertaining. And it's a world that you want to come back to, and the cast has come together so well. Leighton Meester from Gossip Girl, Clancy Brown, and then Luke Cook, who I had not previously seen much of, but will certainly be seeing a lot of him in the future, is just a complete star. And the chemistry between them all is fantastic to watch, and it's a place I think that viewers will want to come back week on week.
So the show's set in Eden Vale, which is positioned in the show as the safest place in America, but there's a bit of an undercurrent going on, isn't there? Tell us a little bit about the show.
So Eden Vale is a small town America, but the the father figure of the town, the cop. He's the father of the family as well. He's determined that it's the safest place in America. The show is episodic crime week on week. His daughter, beautifully played by Leighton Meester, has been in the family business for a long time. Her brother Henry, played by Luke Cook, has been gone, and as our first episode starts, he's come back to town, both to rejoin the family but also to join the police force. So we have the family dynamic, the great sort of dialogue between the two of them that's funny and warm, lots of misunderstandings, lots of history between them. As the series goes on, though, the viewers and gradually Lou and Henry also will start to realise that there, in fact, is a much deeper, darker secret that the town is hiding, which will play out as a sort of a serialised element that the viewers will gradually realise that the town has a much darker past.
All right, so it's a procedural with mystery, action, suspense, and a little bit of humour as well.
A lot of humour, a lot of family dynamics, and a lot of warmth.
All right. Okay, so the second show that we're going to talk about on the slate is called Until I Kill You. It's a 4x60. It was commissioned by ITV. Mm-hmm. Tell us about this one, because this is a real powerful and harrowing true story.
It is. This is the story of Delia Balmer. She was a woman who survived an astonishingly abusive relationship, and it's a testimony to her courage and resilience over a very long period of time. She was a nurse. She met this a charming, quite artistic man who swept her off her feet until she realised that in the course of their relationship, he had a much darker, more possessive and ultimately very dangerous side. It started a long abusive relationship that ended very violently. But when she went to the police, she wasn't believed. When she got to court, and the court didn't really believe her either. They didn't understand how dangerous this man, John Sweeney, was, and he was set free to immediately, very, very brutally attack her, an attack of which she was lucky to survive. So this story takes that true story, and it really shines a light on the British justice system and how it let her down. And it's a story that unfortunately still has a lot of resonance today. Because there, the issue of domestic abuse is as current as ever, and it's a very important story to tell.
Miss Balmer, please tell the court about the night of Thursday, the 22nd of December, 1994.
You mean the night he killed me?
Julia, stay with us. I'm John.
Delia. I love travelling.
You been to Amsterdam? That's the last place I was in.
Come and dance with me, John.
Fucking sit down.
Are you scared of him? I woke up and you were strangling me.
That must have been scary for you.
You need to finish with him.
I want you to move out.
This again. You want to know what happened with me and Melissa? I killed her in Amsterdam. I chopped her up and I put it in a fucking canal.
True crime is obviously more popular than it ever has been, and ITV has really been at the forefront of that. This is a very sensitive story.
Yes.
How do you produce a show like this in order to be sensitive to the true aspects of this case, but also making an entertainment show essentially?
Well, the answer to that is work with producers that are really, really good at it and have done it before and are very trusted to do that. Until I Kill You was written by Nick Stevens and produced by World Productions. That is a reuniting team after Pembrokeshire murders. So we had every confidence, quite rightly so, that that as a team could produce a show that takes this very, very sensitive story of a real life trauma, treats it with the respect that it deserves, and they had broad enough shoulders to shoulder the responsibility of telling an important story like this. The themes of it, the high stakes, the danger, are naturally absorbing to an audience, but as a public service broadcaster, we do have a responsibility to ensure that the story is told with respect. It is based actually on Delia's autobiography, and she was involved in creating the show as well.
True crime seems to be ever popular, and perhaps more popular than ever. Again, can you just tell us a little bit about how you tell these kind of true stories so sensitively? What's the key to doing that?
Well, I think it's key to balance the sensationalistic and the the salacious with the fact that this is really someone's true story, someone who's been through awful trauma. The dynamic, I think viewers are instantly gripped by danger, and when the stakes are genuinely so high. But when it is such a traumatic true story, really for us, the fact that trusted producers are making it is the key, that have got that track record, because the producers and obviously ITV as a broadcaster is this is very important to them too. The story has to be approached with sensitivity, with respect, because they're very real issues on the table, and it's a responsibility to tell her story that will speak to so many women out there.
Okay, and next up we have Parents' Evening, which is the 3x60 again premiering on ITV. Tell us about that one.
So this is part of our formats, of one of the new formats we're bringing to MIPCOM, which we're very, very excited about. Parents' Evening is funny, it's warm, it's uplifting, it's quite a unique idea, really. It's Ramesh, it's hosted by Ramesh, the ITV version, with his mother. And the show sees 3 different couples that are a parent-child combination. In the ITV version, it's a celebrity and either their parent or child, but it can be members of the public as well. And really, it's a lovely play-along dynamic with a jackpot finale, which can sound quite familiar. But watching the dynamic between the couples, the embarrassment, the humour, the parents being in control of the questions, but the kids having to answer. It's a really lovely way to spend an hour of your time. And I think with so much out there going on in the world, the show that has got this much heart and humour is something to look forward to. And
it's interesting having a format that's bringing you together with your parents, right? And it's real family viewing and encouraging people to sit and watch together.
It really lends itself to co-viewing, we think, this format, and because different generations can each get something out of it, and it's really universal as well. I mean that family dynamic, parent-child dynamic is something that is truly universal. So we think it's going to be eye-catching as well.
So that was a 3 hours commission from ITV, yes. But it's also available as a format, yes. And also as a finished programme around the world.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay, next up, we've got a show called A Party to Die For, which looks amazing fun, 6x60, and it's a murder mystery party. Tell us about that.
It is. So this comes from ITV Studio Netherlands and Talpa. It's a co-developed format that launched on SBS as a pilot earlier in the year. It was hugely successful. And they've ordered a series which has finished airing and got really terrific ratings. It was very, very popular. So we're very excited about it. It's essentially a murder mystery party that we've all played along before. It's played by celebrities. It allows the viewers to play along as the celebrities try and figure out who the murderer amongst them is. And it's quite gripping. The audiences in the Netherlands really loved it. We're having lots of interesting conversations with commissioners around the world, so definitely one to watch.
Yeah, well, I can't believe nobody's done this before. This is such a brilliant idea.
There's something very familiar about the murder mystery, but it's a truly everlasting love that audiences have for the murder mystery genre. It's fun. I don't think we'll ever have too much whodunit.
Let's take a look at a clip.
A group of celebrities have been invited to a party. They are welcomed by the host. They have no clue why they are there. But they will find out soon enough. The party has just started. However, one seat is empty. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream is heard. One of them has been murdered. The murderer is also a celebrity, but not one of the group. He or she will not be visible until the climax and the reveal. The celebs have to find out who the murderer is. They need to investigate everything, leave no stone unturned. They have to gather evidence. Who turns out to be the best detective?
Okay, so the next show on the slate is called Double the Money, which is commissioned by Channel 4, was out earlier on this year in the UK. Tell us about that one.
So Double Your Money comes from South Shore, and it's a great format that really taps into the zeitgeist at the moment of people who are struggling. And there's a lot of people out there that need, they need a second income. They're looking, people have got their side hustle in tough times. And it's a game show, it's a competition reality format that allows them to go and try their side hustle and see if they can double their money. And the person who's left standing is the winner and wins a really decent cash prize. It launched really, really well as a format earlier in the year, and Denmark, in fact, picked it up and has ordered it, and it's coming out soon in Denmark already, and again, other conversations happening, so we think it's a format to watch.
The next show on your slate is one that we've already spoken to the guys from Plimsoll about, which is elsewhere on our live stream, which is Shark Celebrity Infested Waters, which is a commission by ITV, which is not produced yet, shooting in Bimini.
Yes, it will shoot in a few months' time,
In a few months' time. So
that's a shoot I wouldn't mind going to the set of, but never mind.
Absolutely, yeah.
I bet go on that one.
I bet there's a few requests for set visits on that production. So for those who haven't seen the show before, tell us about Shark Celebrity Infested Waters.
Sharks it's an adventure series combined with a natural history series in an entertainment format. It's really exciting. I don't think there's anything else out there quite like it. Bimini, I haven't seen it, but I've seen pictures. Justin, I think you've actually had the fortune to be there. It's the most beautiful place in the Bahamas, and is known for its shark-infested waters, quite literally. But the series is really about tapping into your fears, overcoming your fears, as well as giving a very strong message to audiences that sharks are under threat. Sharks are scary to a lot of us, myself included, but an ocean without sharks is actually a more scary prospect. So it's a conservation mission in there as well, but it's really entertaining, and celebrities will be put through various challenges as they finally build up to the big confrontation with. And it's next year is the 50th anniversary, if you can believe it. I mean, how old does that make you feel, of Jaws? And obviously Jaws made a myth out of the shark, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of other people too, was utterly terrifying and has very much created my understanding and view of sharks. If I see a fin in the water, there's a primal fear there, isn't there? So I think this series will do very, really well. I think it will grab a lot of attention. And even if you're watching it from behind your sofa, I think a lot of people will be tuning in. Yeah,
and I know we can't talk about the celebrities that have been cast so far, but I'm told that the profile of a lot of these celebrities is perhaps bigger than you might see on a similar type of show. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of buy-in to this sustainability message and entertainment as well.
And I imagine the challenge of putting yourself through this in a very, very beautiful place. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some crime shows, your crime collection. Abused by Mum, the Ruby Frank scandal, which is 1 × 90, that was commissioned by Channel 4 and Peacock. So tell us about that one.
I think a lot of your viewers will be very familiar with the Ruby Frank story. It's been covered, endlessly. A really gripping, horrifying story of a woman who sort of portrayed herself to the world as an expert parent. Meanwhile, she was, really horribly abusing her children. So I think it is this documentary uses body cams from the police men and women who were interviewing at the first time. So it is unseen footage on a familiar story, and it does allow the viewer to go in deeper and really start to sort of understand what her family went through.
So a lot of aspects of this case that haven't been seen before that are coming out on this show. Okay,
it feels very topical, and the celebrity and fame of the internet that she had while she was committing the crimes.
And that's available now. That's good. We're seeing that for the first time at MIPCOM.
Yes, that'll be coming out at MIPCOM.
Let's take a look at a clip.
911, what's your emergency? Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police. This kid has obviously been He's been detained. He's covered in wounds. What's your mom's name? Ruby Frankie is his mom's name.
Okay, so the next show on your slate is called Secrets of the Spy Whale, which is an intriguing title. 2 by 60 Minutes was BBC commission.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
So this comes to us from Oxford Scientific, who are a fabulous production company within the ITV Studios family. And when we first had this pitched to us, we couldn't quite believe it. It's a story you'd think we'd be all very familiar with, and it's a look at the use of animals in warfare and espionage. It's not new. That's not a new concept. Obviously, animals have been used for centuries. This takes a look at the modern use, in particular around the Arctic. We've got this wonderful character at the centre of it. He's called Vladimir, and he is a whale. And the Oxford Scientific are, as well as very good documentary and entertainment producers, have got a very strong natural history track record. So it's really merging the natural history techniques with documentary making for a fascinating look at the use of animals in espionage and warfare. It's something really quite different that it's a story we really haven't seen before. I'm really much looking forward to it. The BBC are very excited about it. It was originally commissioned as a one-parter, and there's just so much story there. It's now a two-parter for us.
So that's a whistle-stop tour through the catalogue that's going to be revealed at MIPCOM.
And I would ask anyone who's watching to go and check out the catalogue at itvstudios.com, because there's lots more where that came from.
All right,
Bit of a plug.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what about what else is coming next for ITV Studios? Because it's obviously a premium slate that you have. But can you give us a sense of what's coming down the track even further away?
There's a lot of very exciting things, both on the drama slate as well as the format and non-scripted slate. There's a couple of things that just, as you asked me that question today, we've just had a cut-in of a show that is in our catalogue. We are launching at MIPCOM. It's being commissioned by Joe Clinton Davis at ITV from Grain Media, who, if you don't know them, are an Oscar award-winning film production company. It's called I Cut Off His Penis, which is a title that is sure to get attention.
Certainly is, yeah.
It is, as you might guess from the title, it does cover the Lorena Bobbitt story, but also the story of many other women. Because I don't know if you know this, but the act of cutting off a penicide, if you want to call it that way, is a global phenomenon and has been on the increase. It's an astonishing 2-hour documentary that I have just seen. I blubbed my eyes out. I cried buckets of tears. It's an incredible look at something that's very traumatic, and has completely changed my perception personally of something that always produces a few sniggers and a few laughs. And in fact, she says in it, people have laughed at my trauma all my life, and this really rips the veil off that, and is something I would definitely recommend people watch. Sticking with crime, there's also a couple of new crime dramas coming. Both for ITV, but feel very different to potentially the typical ITV drama that people have seen to date. One is called Code of Silence. It's from Mammoth Screen, and it is the first show that I've had on my slate, and I think that will have been on ITV, with a drama where the protagonist is deaf. The lead will be played by Rose Ayling-Ellis of EastEnders and Strictly fame, and she plays a deaf woman who is struggling to make ends meet. She's got 2 jobs, one in a bar, one in a canteen. As it happens, the one in the canteen is a police canteen. And they see on her CV she can lip read. They haul her in to help them on a sort of last-minute emergency. There's a very high-stakes investigation into organised crime going along, and they've got surveillance footage that they can see, but there's no audio, so they ask her to lip read for them, and so she gets sucked into this investigation, into a world that's completely strange to her. It's a thriller, it's crime, it's got a gorgeous protagonist. I'm really excited about that one.
All right. And you've also got one you mentioned earlier on to me, just before the show, called Cold Water.
Yeah, so from Sister Production. It's written by the fantastic David Ireland, and it's a crime show without an investigation or a police force. The protagonist is played by Andrew Lincoln in his first TV gig since The Walking Dead. His wife and him have taken their family up to Scotland. He's essentially running away. They move into a house, the next door house. The local vicar lives, played by the fantastic Eve Miles. And we, ahead of him, find out that her husband, his neighbour, is in fact a serial killer. And John will be sucked into his world. It's very atmospheric, it's unique, and we're very excited to see more.
Yeah, well, lots of exciting shows being debuted here at MIPCOM 2024, but also a few further down the line as well. Julia Meldal Johnsen, thank you so much for joining
Justin.
us. And back to Cannes. Thanks to Julie there for joining us in our London studio last week. Next up, I'm joined again by Andy Fry from MIPCOM News. Hi, Andy.
Hi, mate. You okay?
Yeah, I'm very well. We're going to be talking about all the news coming out of the Croisette in our daily News from the Floor roundup. So what are the big stories, Andy?
Well, should we start with Donald Trump?
Why not?
Why not?
Why
he's
not?
the man of the moment, isn't he? Well, hopefully not.
Yeah.
But there's a session tomorrow talking about the Variety editor, Ramin Sotoudeh, who's going to be talking about his interviews that he's done with Trump over the years. So I think that'll be quite entertaining. But there's also a story today about a documentary which has been distributed by All 3 International. It's produced by 72 Films, and it's basically looking around the criminal conspiracy trial that's been attached to Trump. And it's sold very widely. They've had a good market in terms of getting out to international buyers. And I think that says a couple of things. Obviously, documentaries need to be high quality. They need to be of the moment, you know, if they can attach themselves to a big news event and have big names attached. There's another one coming out later in the week, different kind of thing, which is from Fremantle, and it's Martin Scorsese giving his own unique take on the saints. You know, sort of some of the major apostles, Joan of Arc and various others. So I think if you want to be in that kind of factual game, you need to have something that really stands out.
Yeah. So mega docs are essentially still selling.
Yeah, they're still selling, but you know, they have to have, you know, something special about them.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I think drama is still a big talking point. We were talking yesterday about risk aversion, and I think one manifestation of that is that a lot of distributors I've spoken to in the last month or two have said that English language drama is really in demand. Now, if you remember 3 or 4 years ago, we talked a lot about demand for German, Scandi, Italian drama. Now, I'm not saying those don't sell. They still sell. There's strong markets for them. But right now, with this need for security, English language drama is doing very well. And I think that's manifested in a few ways. A lot of sales for Fremantle's Night Sleeper, which performed well in the UK and then sold to TF1. And that has been enough of a recommendation for it to go on to sell around the world. So lots of sales news around that today. Interestingly, I think there's also good scope for Australian and Canadian drama to sell. So a show called Critical Incident has just been sold. Australian show been sold back into Hulu in the US by All 3 Media. There's another show called Sullivan's Crossing, which is a Fremantle show, which is Canadian, selling well around the world. So I think this English language push is not just benefiting American shows or British shows, it's benefiting all English language shows.
Yeah, so we really are seeing a bit of a retrenchment to safety across broadcasters, and it was something that Guy Bisson yesterday from Ampere Analysis was talking about. You know that attitude to risk is really sort of front of mind for a lot of broadcasters.
Yeah, I think so. As I say, it doesn't mean if you have a high quality show in any language it will sell. I mean, there's a market for it, but there is this retrenchment. I mean, there's this advert again from the magazine for a show called Costiera, which is a Fremantle show. This is a show set in Amalfi. Tells the story of a guy who works in a hotel as a fixer in Amalfi, and it's an English language show. Now, Fremantle could have made that in Italian. They owned Italian production companies. It's set in Italy. They could have done it a different way, but I just think at the moment English language is in demand. And there was another one today. Beta have a show called The Couple Next Door, which has been on Channel 4 in the UK, done very well, and is now selling globally. It's an English language show based on a Dutch format. So I think, again, that process of Dutch format to English language show, 50 sales around the world. So I do think that there is a demand for that at the moment.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of your busyness at the market, I mean, has it been a busy market for news?
I think it's busy. I mean, but I think, as we were saying yesterday, it's not always about deals. It's sometimes about insights. It's about what's coming out of conferences. It's about messaging as much as deals. So I think the keynotes, we referenced upcoming keynotes yesterday, and a couple of those have happened now. And I think Channing Dungay, in her keynote, she made a couple of points that are really interesting. She said that Warner Brothers Television, which has not historically done co-productions in a big way, is really keen on co-production. So that is a reflection of the financial challenges in the market. You know, big Hollywood studio actively going to the international market and looking for co-production, which is quite new. She also said that procedurals are on their way back. You know, procedurals have never quite gone away, but, you know, for a period of time, we've had those limited series, 8-parters, you know, will it go to second season? And now she's saying that those episodic story of the week pieces are really back in demand. And procedurals, again, are an indication of a market that is looking for safe bets. And then Tony Vinciquerra, very interesting guy. He's helped turn around Sony Pictures Entertainment in his 7 years there. He picked up the Variety Vanguard Award yesterday. He predicts a couple of years of continued chaos. You know, he thinks there's going to be a lot more pain for the next 2 years. But his positive, upbeat message is that at the end of that 2-year period, people will still want entertainment. Once all of the disruption has died down, then there'll still be a business. You know, so it's about clinging on.
Well, it's a long time to cling on, 2 years, isn't it, in this industry? It feels like, you know, way over the horizon, but it's not really, is it? It's only 24 months.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people in every link of the chain have already suffered quite badly. Yeah. But you're right. I think the message is, you know, it's just about resilience. You know, it's about trying to stay the course. And as we were saying yesterday, the bigger companies with catalogs, with access to networks, with long-standing relationships are going to do well. I mean, I know that ITV Studios, for example, they've re-geared their business in the last couple of years around the notion of being client-facing. So it's not about the deal, it's about the client relationship. And they just announced a renewal of a partnership with Seven Australia. So that's a 25-year-old relationship, which they've now renewed. So that's not just about saying, oh, here's our drama, take this. This is about saying, here's our catalogue, here's what's coming up, what solutions can we provide for you? So it's a different way of thinking, which favours the bigger companies that can offer, you know, any number of different ways of segmenting this business.
Yeah. Now, we've got Evan Shapiro coming on the show a little bit later today, so we're really looking forward to catching up with Evan again and hearing some of his insights. He's been in the Innovation Hub, hasn't he, down in the bunker, and there's been a few sessions that he's been leading. Have you caught any of those? Have you got any insights from what he's said up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I've caught some of Evan yesterday and today. I mean, obviously he's coming up. He's very good at, you know, saying his piece. So I won't attempt to do what Evan does well. But one of the key messages, he spent some time with Justin Sampson of Barb. Barb is the measurement agency in the UK. Very good at what it does, similar to Nielsen in the US. And they dissected data. And one of the most interesting pieces of data is that 16 to 34s in the UK, when you look at their viewing behaviour, 80% of their viewing is now either streaming or social. Wow. Broadcast is like 10%.
Yeah.
When they broke it down by platform, the top platforms in order of priority was something like, I think it was YouTube first, Netflix second, TikTok, the BBC. So the BBC is sitting there providing 10% of audience to the 16 to 34 demo. So, you know, Evan kind of rightly raised this provocative point. What does that mean as these kids get older and they become politicians and decision makers? What does that mean for the license fee, you know, for media policy and so on? If the BBC is only hitting 10%, you know, do they still need to take £2-3 billion a year? I'm sure they'll say they do, but I think it's going to be a much more live issue.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a stunning figure, isn't it? And I think everybody in the industry who's got kids and that sort of teenage years already knows that, but I don't think we've ever seen it laid out in such stark terms, have we?
Yeah, 80% is massive, and he was saying that's one of the reasons we're beginning to see broadcasters actually going to YouTube to distribute their content. So Channel 4 puts long-form programming on YouTube, and that's hitting a new audience, an additive audience that they're not reaching just through broadcast. So I think he said like 0.6% share of Channel 4 viewing comes from the viewing that they get via YouTube. So I mean, you can see YouTube as a destroyer of the business or an opportunity to find new ways to audience, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a destroyer of the traditional business, if you like. And I think it looks like in maybe those 2 years that Tony Vinciquerra was talking about, maybe when we get there, the landscape will look much different, right? And YouTube. Yeah. Sounds like they're going to be a much more powerful player than they are now, even.
Absolutely, and I suppose just segueing, the other thing, the FAST Summit, the Fast and AVOD Summit has been on today. So it's been a very hot subject for a couple of years. I think everyone who's had any content has been out there launching channels, and there are a couple more deals announced today. Blue Ant have extended their relationship with Pluto TV, so they've got Love Nature and one of their home channels into the US. And Wild Brain, they've launched a Pokemon channel and a couple of other kids channels based around IP like Strawberry Shortcake. So there are still people coming to market, launching fast channels. But I think we're in a different game now. I think we're at a point where there are lots of fast platforms, lots of fast channels, and it's going to be about attrition to some extent. I mean, it's got to be about consolidation of the platforms. Some of the channels simply not making it, not being good enough, not having enough content, enough marketing ounce or investment to survive. So I think we'll see a more sober period. I think fast is obviously growing, and if you talk to any fast executive at the BBC or ITV or the bigger companies, they still love the business and they think there's going to be a lot of ad revenue to be generated. But I think there's going to be some fallout. So again, interesting dynamic. It's it's an opportunity for businesses to make more money, but exactly who's going to be the winners, it's quite difficult to tell.
Yeah. So looking ahead to the rest of Tuesday and onto Wednesday, Andy, what do you expect to see coming out? I know there's a few more keynotes to happen, aren't there? And there's lots of other panel sessions as well. So what are going to be the things that you're watching out for over the next day and a half?
Well, there's a Dan Cohen keynote later today. That's Paramount. So I think that's going to be very much about Paramount's content licensing. So they're very much in the business of doing third-party deals, not just sucking up all the content for their platform. So I think it'll be interesting to see him add some flesh to the bones on that subject. One thing I'm quite interested in, which I just spoke to them yesterday, it's not necessarily the biggest commercial story of the market, but there's a Nigerian company here called Accelerate who are screening a documentary this afternoon, which is about the decolonization of Africa. And as they were saying, that's pretty much the first time anyone has told the story of decolonization from an African perspective. So I think it would be great to see them get a deal on that show. Hopefully that show can get on a global platform, or the producer is telling me she'd love to see it on the BBC. And it seems right that that's where it should be, so people can actually see what decolonization was about. Yeah. And they were very fortunate. They got lots of senior figures, people who were around at the time, who are now in their 70s, 80s, 90s, to talk about that period. A couple have died since the film was made, so in a way it's an important historical document. So I think that's interesting. I mean, coming back to the programming, there was a screening of Rise of the Raven yesterday, and I think there is interest around period pieces still, big period pieces. That was a Hungarian-led piece, so it's about a Hungarian hero, but there was another one I was looking at. There's a period piece about Mozart as well, and some Turkish drama in the market, so I think big historical pieces are still of interest. And I noted with interest that Beta have had quite a lot of success selling a show called Maxima, which is it's a relatively contemporary royal story. It's a dramatization of a princess, I think from Holland, but I could be wrong, so apology to royal viewers. But it struck me as interesting that we've done the royals to death as a historical period subject, but with The Crown looking at Diana and with Maxima coming out of Holland, maybe there's a moment in time for more contemporary royal stories, maybe a revisit of Grace of Monaco, or some of the other more glamorous romantic love stories. Maybe there's a moment for that as well.
Interesting. Andy, thank you so much for joining me again. We'll look forward to doing the same thing again tomorrow for day 3, and good luck catching everything. I know you're dashing around all over the Croisette and in the Palais, so thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Again for that. We'll see you again tomorrow. So we're going to take a short break for some messages from our sponsors, and we'll be back soon with Solange Atwood from Serial Maven Studios as we hear about her new business. Stay tuned.
Something about small towns.
You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Alberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.
Welcome back to TellyCast Live from the Palais. Now, my next guest is international industry executive Solange Atwood, who recently launched her new content business, Serial Maven Studios. Welcome to TellyCast, Solange. It's been a long time. I've wanted to have you on the show for ages, so thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm so pleased and I'm so grateful to be here with you. And Justin, you know, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of TellyCast.
Oh, amazing.
And
keep talking. Keep it coming.
I will. You know, part of what I do is compliments where it's due, and so I love what you're doing, and I'm very excited to be here and talk about the business.
Brilliant. Okay, so this is your first market as Serial Maven Studios. Obviously, we know you've got a storied background at Blue Ant Media and very well-known international executive on the back of that, and travelled all around the world for a number of years. So, you know, you're one of the best-known execs in the industry. So tell us about the new business.
Too kind. You're too kind. I certainly am very fortunate in that I've had a lot of opportunities in the industry to be an entrepreneur. And I've worked quite extensively in the sort of indie sector, working both on development, production, distribution. And of course, many people know me from my tenure at Blue Ant Media, where I started the international distribution business there. And I had the privilege of working with some fantastic other executive talent during my tenure there. And yes, I am here at MIPCOM with our COO, Julie Chang. We're here in Cannes on the Croisette, and we are talking all things Serial Maven Studios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you talked about entrepreneurism, and that's obviously, you know, within your DNA.
Yeah.
So so what really drove you to starting the new business with Julie? You know, what obviously it was on that entrepreneurial streak, but what was it that you wanted to create that was different from what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, I love this business. I think about it and obsess about it all the time. And, you know, for many, many years, especially with the rise of SVODs, what I do and what Julie and the team at Serial Maven Studios does so well was not quite as relevant. And so what I'm saying is we are an intellectual property business, and our real core expertise is stitching together international co-productions, co-financing models. Anyway, all to say, for a long time, with the rise of the SVODs, what we do wasn't really at the forefront. And so it didn't necessarily make sense in the past to launch a studio like Serial Maven Studios. But about 10 months ago, we did in fact launch the studio. And it was because it was the right time. There was an opportunity finally in the marketplace to be able to retain intellectual property, to be able to collaborate with best creative talent around the world, to be able to assemble a sort of committee of the willing on the financing side of what ultimately will be really premium original IP.
Yeah.
So it really is, why now? It was the right time. The market was open to a company like this. The other thing is there's been a lot of consolidation in the marketplace, and there's quite a few big companies, but there's not as many little companies that have the expertise and the track record to be able to do the kind of work that we do. And so it was the right time with the right executive talent. The marketplace was open. So there were a lot of factors that coalesced in order to say, okay, now is the right time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on a personal level, I am of an age, which I will not share, that I have just enough energy to do it one more time. And so I had the strength, the willingness, the desire, the hunger to really be able to give it that real push that you need as an entrepreneur to build something of real, you know, scale. And so I thought, okay, it's now.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you launched as a content IP business, but then a little bit later you announced your distribution arm as well.
Correct.
A little bit before MIPCOM. So, Just expand a little bit about your approach, a different approach to financing and distribution, which I know is something that you wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to getting at intellectual property, and that's a business way of saying to get to great storytelling. And to be able to be a diversified business in which you are swimming in lanes and pools with great creative talent can come in a variety of different ways. So we always knew at the onset that we are developers, that we are physical producers, but that we were also going to be distributors. We were going to be all of those things. And so, you start where you can start. And so we started with creating a development slate, getting production green lights, and then moving on to sort of the distribution business. I think if, you and I have had conversations about this in the past where everyone assumed that I would eventually launch a distribution business. They weren't wrong.
Yeah.
It's certainly in my DNA. But it was important to us to be able to have all of those verticals and a diversified business, all of which aim to help and super serve our partners to get to green lights.
So how does one go around assembling your first slate when you've got MIPCOM in the looking at MIPCOM towards the end of the year, and you're thinking, okay, now's the opportunity to create this new business, and what am I going to be showing at MIPCOM? I mean, talk us through that.
Well, I have the good fortune that I got a lot of inbound calls, actually, which was lovely. So when of course, we started with our development slate, and we spoke to many people who we love, and that have a fantastic track record. And so we set up our development slate, and so all of that started to really come together. And then we turned our mind to distribution, and so ultimately, in some instances, we were in the flow of conversation with commissioners, with producers, and we told them we will be launching a distribution business, and we got to get to a yes with those people, and we were fortunate to be able to pick up a library from Marcus Entertainment that had a number of series that were produced by 0.0, who of course are the production company that did all the Anthony Bourdain material. So we were lucky to be able to get material coming out of the U.S. market. We also have collaborated with a number of incredible Canadian producers, whether that be Peacock Alley, Arcadia Entertainment. There were wonderful people who entrusted in us to give their titles to us to then export on the international marketplace. And the same was true in the UK and in Australia. And so in very quick succession, we were able to assemble just over 300 hours, mostly from production partners in the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia. And so we have the good fortune now, obviously, to be here and to be telling those stories, representing those titles, and finding great opportunities to license that incredible work to platform partners from around the world.
So 300 hours is a great catalogue to launch with. Can you just give us a sense of what are the major genres that you're focusing on in year one for Serial Maven?
Absolutely. We went directly to our core strengths. So we're very focused on the factual space and basically anything in the factual space. We are also quite strong in the lifestyle space, as well as documentary programming and specialist factual.
Right.
So if you look at both our development slate and our distribution offering, they really fall into those verticals. And so we played to our strengths, but we've remained diversified. And really, through it all, it's really about quality.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I know you're going to say it's fantastic, the reception to our first catalogue, but you're obviously dashing in and out of meetings, doing the half hour throughout the day thing.
Yeah.
How's it going? What's the feedback?
Yeah. if I'm totally honest, it is really overwhelmingly positive. And I think that's because we're kind of a good news story in a market that is really hard. And lots of people are going through very difficult things. No one is immune to redundancy. There's incredible disruption. And so to be able to point to a startup that is succeeding is exciting, I think, for everybody. And one of the things that's so fantastic about this industry is that we're a real community. We're a community of people and storytellers who share in successes. And that's really needed right now.
Yeah.
And so it's been wonderful. But we can't talk about it too much more because I'll cry, because I'm a real crier. But it really has been overwhelmingly positive, both because the community wants to rally around good news, but also because there is a commercial need for smaller companies in this kind of marketplace. And so it makes sense to a lot of people, and they feel encouraged about being able to do business with a company that's like, yes, I can solve that problem. Yes, I will provide real solutions for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And obviously it's a great news story because it's female-led business, of course, and so it's great to see a female-led distribution and IP business in the marketplace, and wishing you all the very best of luck with it.
Oh, thank you so much, Justin.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. All the best for the rest of the market, Solange. And
thank you.
I know we'll see you on lots of meetings on various different stands around the market up until Wednesday. So all the best.
Total pleasure.
Join us in a few minutes when we'll be speaking with Evan Shapiro, media cartographer, for his insights into the media universe. First, some messages from our sponsors.
Something about small towns.
You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Alberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.
Welcome back. Now, next up on TellyCast is Evan Shapiro, the media commentator whose media universe map and presentations on the future of content has disrupted an industry that some might say have been sleepwalking to disaster in the post-COVID years. And we're going to get into that and much more. Evan, welcome to the show. Great to have you back on, but first time on a live stream.
Yeah, good to see you.
And you've been around Europe for, how long have you been in Europe now? Because we see you all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, back and forth since August.
Right.
So Copenhagen, Milan, Madrid, Amsterdam, London, Berlin. Now I'm going to Munich next week, or this week actually. So.
Yeah, and you've been down in the Innovation Hub for a couple of sessions, haven't you? Tell us about what you've been doing at MIPCOM.
Yeah, so I opened the Innovation Lab yesterday with a bit of a barn burner, where I basically accused our industry of being in innovation stagnation and challenged us to collaborate better around data in particular, because it is part of what's holding us back. The traditional media ecosystem is losing the battle to big tech, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that way, and it also doesn't necessarily need to be a battle. You can embrace big tech if you understand what the rules of the game are, and most of that is being better with your data. And then after that, yesterday I opened with a bit of a keynote for a Samsung event down near the beach, which was a lot of fun.
Right.
And then this morning I did 6 interviews right in a row with some great folks. President CEO of Rakuten, head of programming for Roku, Justin Sampson from Barb, whom I just did a collaboration with around a big report. Probably, I think, the first of its kind look at apples to apples, side by side, platform by platform, 4-screen total viewing in the UK.
Right, okay. Well, let's delve into that, if you don't mind, a little bit. We just had Andy Fry from MIPCOM News, and he came along to that and saw that session. And now, forgive me if I get this figure wrong, but he said, I think it was 80% of young people, and I don't know exactly what that age range was, are actually using streaming services and YouTube as their go-to media consumption.
That's mostly correct.
Yeah.
16 to 34-year-olds, and pretty much everybody under 35, 80% of their total viewing in any given day or month is a combination of social video and streaming. And now, when you think about this, Barb's data it's 4 screens, but it's also only in-home. So that does not include out-of-home. Imagine how much of share of video viewing would be included or would rise to if it included out-of-home as well.
Yeah.
So what's fascinating is 46% of total viewing of all viewers in the UK in the home is still broadcast. But 46% of total viewing of all viewers in the UK over the age of 4 is a combination of streaming and social video.
Right.
So streaming and social has now basically caught up as a combo to broadcast.
Yeah.
Then when you realize that England is super fucking old, so 58% of the UK is over the age of 35, whereas 55% of the rest of the world is under 35.
Yeah.
And so the viewing habits in the UK haven't necessarily caught up because millennials and Gen Z don't make up as large a share of the population yet. But this is something that I love to tell people, and it seems to be a surprise to them. Generations age.
Yeah.
Every year, more millennials turn 35. Millennials are now 43. Millennials aren't kids, they have kids. And so as they age, they're bringing their viewing habits into the majority. There's this generational shift happening in Europe that's a couple of years behind the US, but as that wave takes hold, younger viewers who do not watch, only 14% of viewing for people under the age of 35 is broadcast. Teeny tiny is pay TV. So, as millennials now take over all the heads of households and the seats in parliament, and the tax paying, where they choose to tick that box for the license fee or not.
Yeah.
And as Gen Z, who's now 27 and in Parliament, there's a 22-year-old in Parliament, as they decide the next media bill and they don't have a habit of broadcast, are they really going to be so blithe about continuing to greenlight these fees for the public service media? And it really concerns me to the point where I tried to, with this report, ring an alarm.
Do you think that is news to the BBC? I mean, it's a remarkable statistic, and it's a real eye opener, and it's I think a lot of people will be shocked to see that. But I mean, I know certainly obviously a suite of channels at the BBC. BBC One, I think its average viewer has been around 67, 68 or something like that for a long time. But the BBC in particular doesn't really seem to have grasped this at all at any point in the past, and it doesn't seem like the organisation that it's really able to react, in a fundamental way that it probably needs to.
I think, well, first of all, you have to understand that some of the streaming is iPlayer. So
Okay.
they are,
Okay, so we're including
and they
iPlayer,
were
yeah.
out ahead of most big platforms on the planet.
Yeah.
Not just the UK, but
Yeah.
and in Europe, but around the world. So they do understand the importance of it. But there's two things that I think factor in that are alarming to me. The first and foremost is there are executives there that realize that 40+% of YouTube viewing in the UK is on TV. And they are very protective of their own environment. So they want to try to force all viewers into the iPlayer as opposed to allowing them to watch the content on YouTube. And so they're very concerned about attribution. And I get that, but 0% attribution of a total audience segment is 0%. Any viewing you can get there is really crucial. I also don't think, and I think this is system-wide, not just BBC, but everybody in the TV community in the UK, I think they're not really looking at the population the way that I just talked about it, which is the millennials are, this wave of new generations is coming, and BBC is still the #1 most watched thing in the UK, but that's not a forever thing. And as as the boomers and Gen X start to disappear, which we all die, right?
Yeah.
And millennials and Gen Z become the majority of the adult population, the majority of heads of household, the majority of people in Parliament. This shift is going to come very fast and very violently, and it's going to change the entire viewing construct in the UK. It's going to seem like it was overnight, even though it was much more gradual. And so those two factors, and what's happening is people are now getting their news from YouTube and from TikTok. For people under the age of 35, the top 3 places of viewing are YouTube, Netflix, TikTok. And they're getting their news from these platforms. If the BBC doesn't put its news there, it's ceding these platforms to the bad actors.
Yeah.
These misinformation artists, and this relevancy that they take so seriously is going to go away, and it's going to be harder and harder to justify the license fees there.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know you. So you've been on a big European tour, as we said, this summer. And do you get challenged much? When you're speaking at various different events. Because what,
who would dare challenge me?
Well, I mean, but I'm really, genuinely interested to know that, because you're obviously presenting your amazing media universe map and lots of thousands of data points within that, and there's lots of proof points there. But I think that the traditional TV industry that you see in many countries in Europe, and I've been to a few this year as well, and the conversations that I'm having are the same conversations that I could have been having 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem that the more traditional players have got it, or any sense of
I do get challenged. It's usually in smaller rooms, because I do meet with pretty much the largest broadcasters in any country. I've had in-depth conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I had one in the Nordics recently, and the largest broadcaster in their country, which I will not name. And it was about news. It was, to me, public service media is really important, not just as an art form, but also because the health of a democracy is usually directly correlated to the health of their public service media.
Yeah.
There are studies about that.
And we're seeing sort of a result of that in the States at the moment, right?
We have no public service media, and
Yeah.
therefore we are in utter fucking chaos
Yeah.
as a result. There is
Yeah.
no watchdog there.
Yeah.
But in Europe, you have this great tradition of truly publicly funded broadcasting, and most important, news and factual entertainment. And again, in every country, the thing I just talked about, the BBC, it's the same thing. They resist putting their news up on YouTube because they feel that it's disintermediating them. And what they're doing is they're basically writing off whole generations from providing news and education that they so desperately need. So I do get challenged in the room, and the challenge usually is always based in feelings.
Right.
Very rarely in data.
As in, this is the way we do it.
This is the way we do it. It will be cannibalized. It will cannibalize our viewing. And I'm like, how do you prove that? Show me how you know that. And I will tell you, I had long conversations with Channel 4 about this over the last couple of years. And in part because of my imploring them, and in part because there are some really smart people at Channel 4, they moved a tremendous amount of, not moved, they double book their content, premium long form series on YouTube. First as an experiment, and now, after seeing the results of it, much more. And what they found is there is no cannibalization. These are two different audiences.
Yeah.
And
it's additive, if anything.
It's additive to the audience, but for Channel 4, it's also additive to the revenue because they survive on advertising. And so they're able to generate more income, which they desperately need now. I mean, I think that's pretty evident from the news around us.
Yeah.
As Justin Sampson from Barb said on the panel today, in the first half of this year, I believe, 0.6% of all Channel 4 viewing, so over 0.5% of all Channel 4 viewing was on YouTube. And that's not with a live feed. That's not with all of their series.
Yeah.
And I mentioned their success there in the report, and Channel 4 reposted it proudly, saying, yes, we are leading the way in public service media in the use of YouTube as a broadcast partner.
Yep.
I say things to heads, it's usually the heads of news at these organizations that I have an open disagreement with. And, someone said to me the other day in one of these meetings at a public service broadcaster, again in the Nordics, who said, well, so your entire reasoning for putting news live on YouTube at the same time that it's on the television is just to increase the size of the audience. And I said, yeah. What would be the other reason?
Yeah.
Do you need another reason?
Yeah.
And this person brought up the cannibalization again, and I said it's not proven true. Whether it's BT and Champions League or Channel 4 and their additive audience, there is zero evidence that it cannibalizes the traditional audience from the app or from the broadcast.
Yeah.
And I said, here's the thing: you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can stop.
Yeah.
If you find that I'm incorrect, just don't do it anymore. But definitely at least experiment. And I think what's happened, especially in the last 10 years, is the media ecosystem on both sides of the pond has gone from fear of missing out to fear of finding out. They're afraid of trying it because they're afraid of finding out what's going to happen on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it's really paralyzing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that? Do you think there's perhaps older generation of decision makers in a lot of traditional media companies that are very happy? They're maybe 3-4 years to retirement. It's like, don't rock the boat. I'll just sort of see out my time before I make any really, what might be seen as brave decisions.
Yes and no. You look at Tim Davie at BBC, and as much as I think there is a bit of anxiety over a big change there, he pointed to the moon and said, by the end of this decade, we will be a fully digital, platform. So there are people, my age, And this is the Gen X generation. We're hopefully about to elect our first Gen X president in the United States. Imagine that. It's the first person of my generation to be president of the United States. I'm older than most of the people I'm talking to now.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's a generational thing as much as it is a cultural thing. And I think it's true on both sides of the Atlantic, which is that's not premium. That's social video. We don't do that. By the way, I get the same thing from filmmakers of all ages. Well, I have to be in cinema. I can't go direct to the consumer. That's just not the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
What? Why?
Yeah.
If the consumer sees it as premium, then it's premium. You don't get to decide what is and isn't premium. The user, the audience gets to decide that.
Yeah.
And I think the discomfort that people feel is I studied an art form and now I have to change the way I distribute my art form or make my art form, and I don't wanna.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna is not a real good reason.
Yeah, it's a bit of snobbery as well, I think.
It is very much snobbery.
Yeah.
It is very much snobbery.
I mean, the conversation that I do have with a number of producers talking about social first and going digital first on projects, and it's just they there's an immediate sort of looking down their nose kind of attitude towards it, and it's like, well, why wouldn't you cultivate your own audiences? Why wouldn't you build your own brands direct? If you can make the finances work, and obviously it's a bit of a leap into the dark sometimes, but as you said, it's about experimenting.
And no more of a leap than spending €100,000 on a sizzle tape to try to sell a show to a bunch of people that aren't going to buy it.
Yeah.
Because they're not buying anything anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That's the big gamble is
Yeah.
I'm going to bet on selling to the big gatekeepers who are all going out of business very slowly, or they're all getting fired one by one.
Yeah.
And by the way, most of the money from the big gatekeepers is moving towards sports. And I had David Eilenberg on stage from Roku earlier today, and I said, what's the big trend? Where's the money going in programming? He said, sports.
Yeah.
There are going to be fewer and fewer shows made every year for the next couple of years, both factual and scripted. And so, the idea that you're above building your own audience on TikTok or YouTube, you can find the economics for it.
Yeah.
Not that this is the greatest example in the whole world, but Mr. Beast just got $100 million to make a game show. Jake Paul got $20 million to fight Mike Tyson on Netflix.
Yeah.
The reason they did this is because they bring their audiences with them. They actually have the leverage with the gatekeepers in a way that individual producers no longer do in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And we are in the user-centric era. The users are in complete control of the media ecosystem. And if you don't build your own community, you will lose to all the producers who do. RuPaul's Drag Race is a terrific example of this. This is a show that's been on the air, 100 years.
Yeah.
RuPaul is like 200 years old. It's a vampire, clearly. But one of the big reasons that show is so successful is because Randy and Fenton at World of Wonder started talking to their audience on day one before there was social media.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a direct relationship with them.
And they have their own platform as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You want another good example, Reese Witherspoon. One of the reasons why Reese Witherspoon is one of the most successful producers of content in the world is she has a email list of book club that is the most powerful piece of IP generation in the world. She buys the rights to books, she turns them personally into bestsellers, and then she options those bestsellers as television and film.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift has the most powerful army of fans on the planet.
Yeah.
She self-financed and self-distributed her own film last year, which became the single largest concert film in the history of cinema.
Yeah.
Ryan Kaji started his YouTube channel when he was 4 years old. He now does $250 million a year. He's 12, by the way. He does $250 million a year in merch sales. He self-financed and self-distributed his own film.
Yeah.
Catface Productions, they make animated videos on Minecraft, and then they release them on YouTube. They employ 80 people at their studio. I can go on and on and on and on. You are missing the wave.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a producer, as Quentin Tarantino once said when he was premiering Reservoir Dogs at the Sundance Film Festival, just make it. Just go out and start making it. Find your fucking audience. But if you're not prepared to do that, I'm telling you, you will lose to those who do.
Yeah. And a final question to end on, Evan, and thank you for being so generous with your time.
My pleasure.
You know, interesting that you talked about that sort of reality of fewer and fewer programs being commissioned. I mean, we're already seeing that, and we have done certainly for the last year.
Yeah, and it started before the strike. This was happening already.
Yeah, and therefore, if fewer and fewer shows are going to get commissioned, that means that fewer and fewer people are going to get employed, both on the production side and presumably the network side, because they're slimming down. We keep seeing week after week, you know, different announcements from Paramount and various other networks and media companies that they're shedding staff. And I know this is something that's very, you know, you're very passionate about, you know, helping people to think who work in the industry in a different way rather than waiting for this sort of axe to fall.
Right.
What is the one single piece of advice you would give anybody watching this who works in the media industry and is thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a job in a year's time? What would be your piece of advice to them?
The biggest piece of advice I can give you is wake up stupid every day. Learn something new about something new every day. If you want to future-proof your career, you have to understand where the money is going. So the corporate gatekeeper content economy is going to continue to contract for the rest of this decade. It's not done getting smaller. There's going to be not just layoffs, but there's going to be mergers and acquisitions. There's going to be tremendous consolidation in the next 36 months. Yeah. Paramount's first. Disco Brothers, Warner Brothers Discovery is next. Who knows what's going to happen at Disney? They just pushed off their succession planning for a year and a half, succession planning. So, you know, but this money is going to the creator economy. And I know this because Google and Amazon and Meta and Apple and Microsoft, the biggest companies in the history of the world, need the creator economy to continue to expand. Yeah. Right? I know this because all of the advertising agencies and all of the brands are much more reliant on the creator-led content economy to sell their products than they are the television economy. Yeah. Meta will sell more advertising this year than all traditional television on the planet Earth. One company. 60% of all advertising on the planet, not all digital advertising, all advertising goes to Meta, Google, and Amazon. Yeah. So go where the money is going. Also, there's a tremendous amount of great content and marketing and innovative things being done on the brand side. So go work at companies who are making content. Look at what is going to happen when Walmart finally gets to buy Vizio. Yeah. Look at what's going to happen in this.
Well, brands are going to be kind of entertainers, essentially.
They are. Chick-fil-A just started a fast channel in the United
Starbucks
States.
Studio and
Correct. So there's going to be a tremendous retail media is now the fastest growing segment of the advertising economy. So there is a lot of money flying around. Yeah. And there's a lot of really fun. Remember fun? Remember when working in media was fun? Yeah. It's not fun anymore. I'm having a great time. Yeah. But I talk to the people who work in media, and they are not. Yeah. There is fun being had. There's joy being had. There's lots of great stuff being made, but it's not in the big gatekeeper economy the same way that it used to be. You have to look at where the future is going, where the money is going, and frankly, where all the good work is being made.
Where there's a bit more freedom.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Evan, thank you so much. It's been a joy to speak to you as ever.
It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have a panel focusing on the fast-evolving world of brand-funded programming, with 3 experts to help us unpick the latest trends and opportunities. We'll see you after the break.
Come on.
Something about small towns.
You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Alberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.
Welcome back to TellyCast Live from the Palais. We have an all-star panel now from the world of brand-funded programming to help demystify this rapidly evolving and increasingly important sector of the content industry. My guests are Sam Glynn, Head of EMEA Entertainment and Culture Marketing at UTA, Roberta Zamboni, Global Head of Branded Content and Sponsorship at Fremantle, and Javier Martinez, Director of Originals at You First. Hello, guys. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Justin.
How are you finding MIPCOM? You having a good time? Are you guys like back to back with meetings?
Well, it's a funny market for us because we deal with brands, and there aren't
Yeah.
that many brands here.
Yes.
So I think that's a shout out, Justin. It's up to you to bring in a contingent of brands, and then they'll have new toys to play with.
Yeah, well, we'll do what we can. The last time I was here was at Cannes Lions, which is a very different affair, obviously, and the Croisette is full of brands doing remarkable things in entertainment. But let's start talking about the growth that brand-funded programming has had over the past few years. From your perspective, starting with you, Roberta, what's driving that shift? How's the landscape change for brands and content creators, do you think?
Actually, I think we are in a very interesting moment for the branded funded life cycle. We are kind of a third stage right now. It's like if we were playing in a third league, in a new league at the moment. We started basically from product placement, so putting the products in the stories. Then we moved on into brand-funded programming from scratch to be able to find premium slots in broadcasters. And now we're jumping into a new way of working together with brands and broadcasters, like co-producing programs. So I think this is a nice time to be in this business because you can play a lot with business models. You can find hybrid spaces to work with. So I think it's very interesting to test something new also in financial modeling. And I find this very interesting and exciting.
Yeah. It seems like a brave new world, but obviously it's not so new, is it? I mean, brands have been involved in entertainment right from the very beginning, and soap operas were actually, created from brands going back many decades. Javier, how are you seeing growth from your perspective?
I think there are several factors, but I would point four. The first of all is authenticity. Consumers are looking for content that is real, is credible, and brands know it, and they need to reach their targets in that way if they want to get them engaged. The second is the results. The results are proven, and the brands are realizing about that, so they are investing more and more. Because they see the results. Also, there are less barriers of entry. Now the brands are becoming more producers, so they do their own content. They don't have these kind of intermediaries to do their stuff and to launch it and to get their content distributed in many different ways. And yes, it's like a D2C model somehow. So I think these are the number of factors that the industry is changing. There is a shift in perspective in that way, and we are eager to embrace it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not easy. As you mentioned, there is an evolving from the product placement to branded content, and this is very interesting and very.
Yeah.
We need to embrace it, and we need to keep pushing. But of course, still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and obviously the advent of social media and YouTube in particular, we've seen lots of brands becoming entertainment providers in their own right, really, and creating their own programming, which is perhaps the next phase. But maybe we'll talk about that in a second. Sam, now you work with some of the biggest global brands out there when it comes to integrating entertainment into their strategies. Can you tell us a little bit about the brands that you work with and how you ensure that they make their content authentic?
Authentic. We're going to keep coming back to those words, aren't we? So I think the power of UTA is we know what's coming next. So we have upstream knowledge of every project in development because somebody has called one of our agents. Can I have your writer, your producer, your director? We'll log the project. So I also represent brands as well as the rest of the agency representing talent. So I can say, hey, brand X, your brand values are this, and here are 15 projects across the world that I know are coming through. Let's start talking to the producers or the writers early on. Let's get into the writer's room. Let's speak to the showrunner. and let's see how we can really make it an organic and authentic integration rather than just shoehorning in something at the last minute.
And that's really important, getting involved right at the beginning of the project, which I imagine is something you might all agree with, rather than that sort of badging of yesterday. This is very much about integrating brands into content right at the inception stage.
DNA plus DNA.
Yeah. And can you give us some examples of brands that you're working with and some of the recent campaigns that you've worked on?
Well, as Roberta said before, it's all about reinventing the business model, and I know she's the queen of doing that. You have to be creative. We've seen, I mean, we were laughing before this and saying we're like the Got Talent hosts with the branded water on the desk.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it. But another way is, if you are a strong category leader as a brand, can you make unbranded content? But your brand values are so embedded in the content that they shine through, and then the brand can post sponsorship bumpers and ads around it. So one client I work with a lot is Ancestry, and they are fantastic, and they do shout about branded content. They will do shows about genealogy and family history and DNA that do not mention the brand Ancestry.com, do not show the website or someone spitting in a tube, which they're never going to do anyway.
Yeah.
But because they are market leaders in that category, they know once that program airs, there'll be a massive upside for them as a brand, and that's smart.
Right, and they have that confidence of knowing that as they're a brand leader, they're the first brand that anyone turns to talk about them.
So they'll put sponsorship bumpers at the beginning of the end. They'll buy advertising media around the show. They'll use social and digital to amplify it, but the show itself remains intact.
Right, okay. Javier, so You First Originals operate at the intersection of sport and talent and media and lots of different areas. How do you tailor brand-funded content within your business in a way that resonates with the right audiences and delivering value for the brands at the same time?
Keep the content first. Keep it original and work with the brands since the beginning, in a very, very early stage, as you mentioned. Because this is the key to success. You have to keep the content very natural and integrate the brand in a way that feels very organic. This way ensures that the content is still valuable for the audience, and also then you can amplify and build products or transmedia products around the content itself to in where the brand can have more presence, so it's a combination of, let's say, more traditional advertising and the pure branded content is what the brands are actually realizing. They don't want to invade the content with so much product or logos. They want to keep it real and authentic and keep the audience engaged. So that's our model. That's what we try to do. It's not always easy because, you have brands that are not that with that mindset, but yes, that's our focus. Yeah.
And actually, let's take a moment to talk about your business. So, You First. Can you just explain, anybody that hasn't come across You First, tell us about your business?
Okay, because it's not easy to explain. I will try to be short and clear. Well, You First is a 22 almost year company. It's a talent agency. We represent over 1,000 talents worldwide, amongst NBA players, soccer players, basketball players. Now in Spain, we have a big portfolio of celebrities and influencers, other verticals such as DJs, or now we are entering the actors scene as well. So this is the core business, and then we have 3 more business units, which are also big. Brand services, of course. We work in 7 countries with over 100 brands in a daily basis, with a workforce of 50 people just in Spain. And then we have the content business. In the content business, I try to summarize, it's divided in 3 different lines: branded entertainment, a podcast company that we acquired last year, Originals, which is the unit that I'm leading. It's a premium outfit, talent-driven content, especially for streamers, and also working with brands. And a YouTube company that we handle over 100, 200 YouTube channels worldwide, amongst sports and content creators, etc. And a big data company in the UK. So just to summarize the picture, is talent, brands, content, and big data. Just a brief summarize.
Well, what?
Kind of everything. Of course, the talent is our DNA and is our value proposition, and this is what we are built for. You know, we work for talent, but we also work for brands and properties, and we utilize this value to propose something unique to the market.
Yeah. Well,
it's in brief.
It
Hopefully, it's
seems-
clear.
It certainly, yeah, it does. I mean, it certainly seems like a developing model, and much in the way that I think UTA is involved in creating content and managing artists and working with brands. I mean, it really feels like it's it's a next generation of branded content. So very exciting businesses.
Very challenging,
Yeah. Roberta, now Fremantle has obviously a very long history of creating content across multiple genres. How do you approach the creative process when working on brand-funded projects? And I know there's a number that you've launched very recently and you're working on at the moment. Do you find it challenging to balance those creative and commercial goals?
Yeah, this is very tricky, and this is the point of contrast between the producers and the brands, and we are just in the middle of that, facilitating this process. We are, again, the experts of this process that is changing a lot. Luckily, we have over 65 labels across the whole company in all the territories, so we are able, once we receive a brief from a brand, to basically select and assess all the projects from the pipeline and slate of every brand, of every label, that might fit with the brand's brief. So this is a very long process, but in the end it's very effective because we can select, we can cherry pick what is most fitting with the brand's brief. So we have this luck of having this whole network of labels working for documentaries, scripted, unscripted, and fast channels and digital. So we can really tap into what it's been under commission and jump into those projects because it's always better not to start from scratch with an original content, but to tap into projects that are already under the radar of the broadcasters or platforms to be more effective in the last part of the funnel. And also, there's a chance for all the labels to put forward projects that are in the back of their minds that have never been released or presented to broadcasters or platforms, but they want to put forward because it really fits with the brand values of the brand involved. So it's really a very dynamic approach. We go back and forth, we assess, we select all the labels, and then we come up with a very compelling project, selecting what we think is the best one.
Yeah, and are you? It's a huge business that you have at Fremantle. I mean, are you finding that brand-funded programming is becoming more and more important within the overall business?
I do think so. It's very, it's very difficult to balance again the storytelling against the brand presence. We don't want, obviously, the brand to overpower the content. So we have to be very careful and select, as you were saying, the right brands that want to do this jump into the unknown because you never know if it's going to be successful, if it's going to be effective, the ROI, all the measurement thing, it's a big issue at the moment, and it will always be, I think. So it's a matter of finding the right projects, the right brands that fit with, again, a certain type of storytelling, which will be, again, authentic, meaningful, and very organic and seamless to the content that we want to deliver. Then there's a whole evangelization towards the producers that we keep doing. It's, it's lasting for years. I think will last forever because producers are, do want to have their own content in place, but we need to translate the needs from the brand. So, for example, we hired a person, a creative specialist in our team that is just translating the needs from the brands to the producers and back.
Right.
And I think this is key. It's becoming very, key for this process to
have a link person, essentially.
A link person in our global team, the branded team, to really translate those briefs into producers. What do you want to do with that? You have to deliver brand values. You have to match those brand values and forget about the brand placement in the content. It's something else. This is not easy because producers have something in mind that doesn't relate with what the brand wants sometimes. So you need to have a facilitator, let's say an enabler in your team to be able to do so. And it's a whole team effort, again, on a daily basis. It's all about,
The last thing you
internal
need
culture.
is a difficult marketing director and getting involved in a very delicate production. It's sort of, you know, there's lots of potential pitfalls there. But that sounds very smart that you've got somebody in place to do that. So Sam, coming to you, looking at the advantages then of brands investing in brand funded programming as opposed to traditional advertising, what do you see the main benefits for brands from a cultural perspective?
Who watches ads?
Yeah.
Who watches linear TV?
Yeah.
I think those are the two key questions. And so if people aren't watching that type of content, you need to be inside of the content in order to get eyeballs. And I think what's key is finding the right content. Like, there's little value in making a great piece of content that goes on a really tiny channel and no one sees and isn't going to break through in culture. Yeah. There's a lot of value in identifying what is going to be a culture-defining moment and being inside that particular show.
Yeah.
So you don't always know. I mean, I always say White Lotus because it's such an incredible show. But imagine if you'd read that script and said, okay, some really rich people go to a hotel, act completely sport, and someone gets murdered. You know, would brands want to be inside of that? Hell no.
No.
However, it's been extremely successful. Brands are all over it by series 3, and it has been a culture-defining moment. So can you know, there are tools to kind of detect what might break through, but it's also the magic. Who thought Squid Game was going to break through?
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a bit of luck, sometimes there's a bit of data and insight and all those tools that can help you detect those gems. But it's important to be, you know, either in something that's really solid. So we've got the big brothers and they've got talents that will keep on delivering audiences, even in a non-linear world. And then you've got these little cultural moments like Traitors or Squid Game that you would have guessed.
Yeah, yeah. And the algorithm won't necessarily pick those up, right? And
Yeah.
AI is not going to take over content creation just yet, hopefully. But Javier, now audiences are more discerning now than ever before when it comes to content, and I think there's ever raising expectations about the quality of content. How do you think that you maintain trust with viewers when you're creating shows? I mean, what's the secret to ensuring that content doesn't feel like that extended ad? And we touched on it earlier on with Sam was talking about Ancestry, this unbranded content, which seems a really, really brave move on the part of a brand. I mean, is that the future, do you think? And whereas a brand actually activates it outside the actual show itself, or what's your views on that?
Well, I think the models are very different in each case, no? But yes, I think the future is just working with brands that understand that if they want to enter in the branded content universe, they need to focus on telling great stories. And the rest, you can build it in a way that can impact your audience in different ways, like, as I said, transmedia products, with the talent themselves, with other type of activations that the brands can have more presence in the content. It's not like, okay, you're going to play this game just in your way. No, this game is different, and you have to understand that you are telling stories because you want to build your audience. You want to create a community of fans. You want to show your customers that your values and your brand's propositions is cool, and they're gonna like it, and your story is amazing, and yeah, that way, it's only about content. So the more organically you keep the story and the brands involved in the content, the better for the purpose, no? So yes, and then of course amplify these opportunities with other type of products, transmedia elements, talent, social media, etc. Then it's another thing. But brand content itself, you have to keep it real and authentic. You want to do it well. Look at Red Bull, for example. No, it's amazing. No, they're pioneers and
well, they really created, I suppose, that a new generation of brand-funded programming, didn't they? And they still do. And there's amazing content you see right across platforms.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Roberta, brand safety is really a hot topic, especially with the rise of digital platforms. How do you navigate ensuring that both the content and the brand align with the values of the audience and the platform? How do you, how do you make sure that brand safety is at the forefront of what you're working on?
It also depends on the, let's say, Ofcom regulation in all the countries that we are working with. So we are very careful about delivering a content that is really aligning with the local regulations. But also in general, this is very key now to understand, to take care of with our producers and writers, to come up with a content that is brand safe. And it's, can be niche and a broad one, but it has to be in line with the brief, as always. I think with the rising of the platforms, this is something very that we need to address a lot more. For example, with Ferrero, we have developed this short series on YouTube, on their YouTube channel for kids. And it's about the wildlife of caps in their ecosystems, and it's all pure editorial content. And despite the Ofcom regulation that where we don't, where we can't have this content live on YouTube because it's for kids and it's chocolate, but we find a way doing that purely editorial to deliver a great content for kids that is, brand safe and it's really, really nice. And then besides the YouTube channel, it will be also distributed on platforms. So it's really up to, touch multiple platforms for different target audiences like kids and Gen Z. This multiplies the opportunities for our world, for our branded funded ecosystem.
Now, as streaming services and digital platforms evolve, Sam, where do you see the biggest growth opportunities now for brand funded programming?
Well, streamers are going to have to change their tune a little bit. There's all kinds of ways to get into streaming content, whether it's through a off-air brand partnership, or we've seen Emily in Paris, which is chock-a-block with product placement and branded integrations. But it's still a little bit fuzzy. People aren't sure. The way most of my clients get into streamers is through prop placement. So there's no payment involved, but we look after the brand and we gift the product to the production.
Well, that's interesting because there are different types
Because there's no compliance then.
Yeah.
I could do that for BBC as well.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got prop placement, you have brand-funded programming, and what are the other ways that you work with brands?
Product placement. So the product placement we paid, and we were talking about brand safety before, and that would be working very closely with the costume designer or the set designer whom we know and saying, this is going to be on air for this many minutes, touched by this particular character. And once you've paid for that, you've got those guarantees.
Right.
Or you give it to them and
you see if it actually makes the edit.
Yeah, but if you have a good relationship with the people who are creating the show, then there shouldn't be a brand safety issue because you've already checked all the boxes, and you're helping them because they need to decorate their set, and they need authentic products to make it look real. And then brand funded, which is from the bottom up, that the brand gets involved, and it can be money, but it can be in kind. So back to Ancestry, they'll provide research or DNA testing kits or genealogists, but may not put cash in. And then the fourth way is co-marketing. So the show's gone on air. How does the brand maximise that IP and use it for their own gain, but also driving viewers back to the show itself? So that's a really nice symbiotic way for brands to work with any piece of content.
Yeah. Now, as I just mentioned, there's different types of ways that brands can get incorporated into programming, and I imagine there's quite a few misconceptions, in terms of from a brand perspective, and also potentially from a producer perspective as well. What can you each of you give me an example of what the most common misconceptions you think that there are, that you come across on a daily basis? Have you?
The very common is the expectations that the brand has against the talent and what the producers we want and the streamers. So well, this is a complex equation. You need to be in the middle, juggling with all interest, and this is always the same. I mean, it's very, very common, and it's very frequent to have this kind of, let's say, situations in which you have to put everything in order, especially the brand's expectation. They have to be really aware of what they're going to achieve, what they're going to have, and what you're going to be able to provide at the end. both in content, distribution, promotion, and everything. No, so this is very, very common. No, this is I guess it happens to you, no, as well all day. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same for you, Roberto. Is that?
Absolutely.
And also, you mentioned before the combination of teams that know the language of brands and content is key. And nowadays, there is a lack of people that are experts in both worlds. In our case, we have a workforce with brands and in content. So we are very well integrated, but it's true that the traditional TV producers or producers, well, they have not that much expertise because it's normal. And when it comes to a brand-funded programming, they have these kind of issues because they want to defend their content and the brand want to defend their interests. And, well, it's a process. It's a process. So either you have someone in the middle that address that situation, or you have a combined team that understand the whole thing and can treat it properly. No? So
communication sounds like very important, right? It's the key watchword in brand-funded programming.
And people that are really, really aware of what they are doing and what they want to achieve, no? Because otherwise it's a nightmare. No, you have teams against teams, no. But I think now that it's changing, especially because of the need of money. That's true. The industry is suffering. And producer needs funds to get things away, and the brand funding seems to be an opportunity.
It seems like a perfect time because there's less and less money for content, and there's still a huge appetite for content.
But Justin, the problem is that sometimes producers think that a brand is going to come along and fund whatever 100%. Wherever it goes.
So that's a misconception on the production side.
I was about to tell this. And they think they have a lot of money to invest. Sometimes it's just, For
a tiny digital channel, they think they're going to fully fund something versus being on Netflix, not understanding that it's all about that
return
ROI.
on investment.
Well, I mean that's really interesting. The fact of new brands coming into the marketplace and becoming entertainment brands in their own right. But I'm not going to ask any figures, but how do you calculate the value of a brand-funded programming deal, whether it be product placement or prop placement, should I say? How do you calculate it? I mean, how does the producer know to charge $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million?
When it comes to brand funded, it's about production costs basically on the program you are developing. So it's up to the label to come up with a cost.
It's based on the budget. It's
the budget. It's the budget given how many episodes, the structure of the program, and also where it's going to be live. It's going to be on air because it depends from streamers to broadcasters. I mean, the time slots, whether it's daytime or prime time, it really depends on the level of production effort you're doing. And then there's the media value, obviously. So the fact that you're, going to a premium slots or daytime slots, it really, varies the media value of the project. But this is for, let's say, brand funded and product placement. Product placement, it's easier because it comes with a broadcaster, a commercial team. So there are rates, there are, precise price list to match with the media value of those broadcasters. So that's easy. It's different from when it comes to scripted, for example. Scripted is a whole. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, I think.
Yes, we are. We've got a panel session tomorrow at 9:45 in the Producers Hub. So if you're in Cannes, come down and we're going to go into lots more detail on lots of different aspects. So make sure you're there. But yes, absolutely.
On the scripted, it's even more tricky because you don't know how much the theatrical project will be, where it will be distributed. Because at the very beginning, you don't know exactly when you start writing that. Where this will be distributed, so you don't know the exact value of the distribution of that product scripted, whether it's a movie or a TV series or whatever. So it's very difficult to come up with a price. So sometimes it's you match the production needs, you match the production value. You have to really balance a little bit the presence of the brand.
The client's budget.
The client's budget, exactly.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you calculate, because at the end of the day, you have a client that is going to tell you, look, have this, and I cannot spend more than this. Okay, so you need to adjust and tweak and redo things. No, it's
that's the final point. Then it's like, that's the brand's budget, right? Because they're the ones that are spending the money.
Of course, you need to value a lot of factors and consider distribution, media evaluation, budget, etc., and exposure, whatever. But yes, at the end of the day, you have to deal with the reality of the budget. Well, yes, and
I'm sure we could go into much more detail about other different pots of budgets that are around brands and media agencies and everything else. But so one final question for each of you. For everybody watching today who's interested in exploring the world of brand-funded programming, probably from a producer perspective, what's the one piece of key advice you would give them as everybody, all producers are looking for more money at the moment? What's the one piece of advice you would give new producers moving into brand-funded programming world?
Hire a translator. So whether that translator is sitting in-house or whether you're hiring an agency, but someone who sits between the brand and the producer, speaks both languages and can make sure everyone's happy.
All right. Okay. Roberta?
To me, it's do programs that everybody wants to watch in the end, generally, because sometimes brands brief us on something that nobody will ever see and watch. So it's very important to come up with ideas that are competitive towards other contents. We have lots of contents to watch nowadays, so we really need to be in the heart of what's interesting for the audience, obviously, and also for broadcasters. So it doesn't matter if it's a niche project or a very broad project, but it has to be in the radar of the broadcaster and the streamers to be able to then be distributed, because you can have the most beautiful brand-funded program from the creative point of view, but then if it's not distributed, there's
nobody's going to watch it, then it's no good for anybody. Yeah.
And so sometimes we try to, disrupt the brief from the client, try to direct into other directions. Because it's going to be, most, likely to be distributed and to be produced by broadcasters. So, yeah.
Okay. And Javier, what's your piece of advice? Would you say?
You already said, but I would say like 3 pillars. No, in addition to what my colleagues mentioned: great content, great talent attached, and great distribution. For us, these 3 pillars are the key to do this business. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on TellyCast live from the Palais. We could talk for a lot longer, and there's lots of different questions that I have, but we are going to get through some of those on the panel tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Again, 9:45 in the Producers Hub on day 3 of MIPCOM. Well, that's about it from day 2 of the TellyCast live from the Palais. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or comments for day 3, just drop them in the comments below. Thank you to our sponsors, ITV Studios and Shooting in Spain, a brand of ISEX Invest in Spain, for making these shows possible. We'll be back again for the final day of MIPCOM 2024 tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central European Time here on YouTube and LinkedIn. We'll see you then.
Something about small towns.
You get to be who you are. I'm Carl Alberg, Chief of Police.
How are your murders?
Unsolved. Everyone confesses sooner or later to somebody. I just thought there might be something you'd like to tell me.
Well, you thought wrong, Sonny.
I can always tell when somebody's lying to me.